"Carry me up the stairs and I'll tell you a secret," the little girl said, her small voice almost lost in the bustle of the city around them. She was sitting on the marble steps outside a towering office building, a pink knit hat pulled low over her ears and a worn teddy bear clutched tightly in her lap. Autumn leaves swirled at her feet. Jake, a mechanic on his lunch break, had been passing by with his toolbox when he spotted her. Before we move further into this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear. Let's dive in. At first, he thought she was waiting for her parents, but the way she sat, so still, so small, made him stop. He crouched down, the creak of his leather tool belt loud in the cool air, and asked gently if she was lost. She shook her head, her wide eyes fixed on his, and told him she was waiting for someone strong enough to carry her up the stairs, promising that if he did, she'd tell him a secret. Jake raised an eyebrow but smiled, saying he guessed he was strong enough. Up close, he could see the paleness of her skin and the faint tremor in her hands as they gripped the bear. He glanced up at the long staircase leading to the ornate double doors and asked why she didn't just walk. Her voice was soft but steady as she explained that her legs got tired fast. Something in his chest tightened. Without another word, he set his toolbox down, knelt in front of her, and told her to climb on. She wrapped her tiny arms around his neck, and he lifted her easily, surprised at how light she was, like the world had already taken too much from her. As he climbed, she rested her head against his shoulder and commented that he smelled like cars. He chuckled and said it was because he was a mechanic who'd been fixing engines all morning. When they reached the top, he set her down gently and told her he had held up his end of the deal. So what was the secret? She looked around carefully, as though making sure no one else could hear, then leaned close to whisper that she came there every day. Not for herself, but for her mum, who worked inside cleaning offices. She said her mum was always tired but never complained, and that she sat on the steps so her mum could see her during lunch break and know she was okay. Jake felt the weight of her words sink in and asked if her mum knew she couldn't climb the stairs. The girl nodded and explained that her mother told her to wait at home. But she hated being alone, so she came anyway, and usually kind people helped her up. Just then, the doors behind them opened, and a woman in a faded cleaning uniform stepped out. Her dark hair was pulled back, and her eyes widened when she saw her daughter. "Mia, what are you doing here again?" she exclaimed, hurrying over. Mia told her she just wanted to see her. The woman glanced at Jake, noting the toolbox in his hand, and asked if he had carried Mia up. He nodded and said she had asked and he couldn't say, "Number." The woman's expression softened, but worry lingered as she told him Mia shouldn't be out there alone because her heart was weak, and they were saving for surgery. Jake looked down at Mia, who was busy adjusting her teddy bear's bow tie, and something shifted inside him. He asked quietly how much they needed, but the woman shook her head, saying it was far more than she could make in years cleaning offices, though she insisted they would get there somehow. Jake thought about the old motorcycle in his garage that he had been fixing up to sell so he could take a long dreamed-of trip. But looking at Mia and her mum, he realized some dreams could wait. He told her to come by his shop tomorrow and that they would figure something out. She blinked, unsure she had heard him right, and asked why he would do that. He shrugged and said someone strong enough to carry her up the stairs should be strong enough to help in other ways too. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment she couldn't speak. Mia looked up at him and smiled, saying, "See, I told you I'd tell you a secret." Jake smiled back, knowing the real secret wasn't just about her daily visits, it was about how much love could fit inside someone so small and how it could change another person's life instantly. The next day, Mia and her mum walked into his shop. Jake had already made calls to friends and contacts. Within weeks, he had organized a fundraiser with fellow mechanics and community members. Customers, neighbors, and even strangers chipped in whatever they could. The day they reached the goal, Mia's mom cried in his shop, hugging him so tightly he almost couldn't breathe. Months later, Mia had her surgery, and when she came home from the hospital, Jake was there with his toolbox to fix the squeaky door on their apartment. He grinned and said he guessed he was still her mechanic. Mia hugged him tightly and said, "No, you're my friend." Sometimes the smallest requests lead to the biggest changes, not just for the one asking, but for the one answering. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and drop a kindness in the comments below.